Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to see how we can return a value from an asynchronous function in nodejs or javascript. Now what is the need for doing this? So for example, if you are making a request to a network like API call, it will take time and your code has to wait for that, so unnecessarily it is waiting, right? And if you do not want to wait, you have to use some callback hell. What is callback hell? In this case, you are just putting one callback inside another, then another callback inside that, another inside that, because your code requires. So instead of having multiple callbacks, you want your code to be linear, to be more readable. Okay, linear, like call API, then data is equal to call API, then use the data like log data. Like this it is better. Instead, without asynchronous, what we should need to do is like this: call API, then you have to pass a callback inside it, then inside that callback log data. Now the code becomes less readable. Now imagine what happens when you are making another API call inside that. If you are making another API call, then it becomes even more complicated. Say call API 2. Okay, now inside that, let's just make and see how it will look with another API call. So this is API 3. Okay, instead of doing all this, what we can do is we can have better readability if the code is linear like this: API 2, API 3. So how to make this code linear? Let us see. Okay, I'm going to comment this just that so that it is there. So first of all, let us define a method called getValue. Function getValue. Okay, this is a standard JavaScript function. Then we'll do print value. I'm doing print value, and inside this I'll place console.log and data. Sorry, inside print value I'll call variable data equal to get value. Let me scroll up and let it increase. Okay, so data is equal to get value. Now console log data. Let's try this. Inside get value I am going to return hello world. Now let us run this. Sorry, I have not called the print value. Print value method needs to be called, and also it has to be mentioned as a function. Now let us execute the value. It is printing hello world as we wanted, like we know. Okay, now introduce some complication in get value. Now to simulate a network request, we're going to do this. We're going to set a timer only after say 5 seconds, or 5 seconds would be too long. Only after say 3 seconds it should return the value, because a network request will be like that. 1, 2 or 3 seconds it might take based on the network speed. So you're going to do 3 seconds, so 3000 milliseconds. Okay, now let's see what the error will get, because definitely we'll get an error. So it is still waiting. Okay, now we're getting undefined error, because when we are calling it, the program has already finished reading it. Okay, now it will not consider any return or any value after 3 seconds. It has already finished reading the function and moved on to the next part of the code. So after print value, show result, show result is there. It has already gone ahead and shown the result. Okay, so it will continue the program, continue the application, mobile app or whatever app. So it will not wait for the value of 3 seconds. In this case, what we need to use is return new promise. We have to return a promise instead of set timeout. So what is a promise? It is a promise that I will return the value, come back to me later, check back with me, like that. Okay, now inside this promise we have to define a method. So this is also a callback only, but if we do it inside the get value method, then it is not messing up our main code, right? We can keep the get value in another file separately, so it will not mess with the readability of the code. So it is abstracted. Okay, so we will return a promise which has two arguments. You can either resolve it or reject it. Both these things will return the value only with an error. Reject will only return it with an error. So we can resolve and say hello world. Okay, now let's run it like this as it is. Okay, let's see if we get an error or message. So what you see is that it is not the value hello world, rather it is a promise. Okay, so when we call the method get value, it is returning a promise, and the promise itself it is printing. Since JavaScript or Node.js is more tolerant towards this data type thing, so it can take any data type because of where. But in other programming languages like C, Java, it will directly throw an error and your program or application will stop. So it is dangerous. So we cannot print the promise or use the promise anywhere. To fix that, we have to wait for the promise to get completed. Now the problem with await is it can be used only inside an asynchronous function, not in the main thread. If you wait in the main thread, your application will hang. In fact, the whole phone will hang. Okay, so it will even not even let you will throw error. But anyway, the idea is that it has to be used only inside async function. Now let's see what the value is printing, what is printed in the value. Now as you can see, it is printing hello world, not the promise, because when you use await, it is waiting for the value and it is resolving the value. Okay, now we have to introduce this. Let me copy this code itself and replace it. One second, bear with me. So I'm going to resolve this. Okay, so let us now see what the value is printing. It will obviously print after 3 seconds because of the timeout now, but as you can see, the value is correct now. Okay, now you can directly use linear code instead of doing a callback hell. Okay, multiple callback inside callback, you don't need to do anymore, and you can very easily do it multiple times also. See, all the hello worlds are printed. Actually, when you run it in your machine, it will print one by one hello world after every 3 seconds. Okay, but since this is like a compiler, okay, let me turn on interactive and see. Now it should print one by one. See, one, after 3 seconds it will print another. Yeah, after 3 seconds it will print another. Okay, so there is some issue because of the, it is an online ID, but the idea is same. So this code, if you see, is equivalent to this code that we defined, that we mentioned, discussed about. Okay, if we do not use promise, okay, if instead of promise, if we are doing something like this, I'll tell you. Let's comment this. Instead of promise, we are doing a callback, and instead of return, we are doing the callback itself. Callback. Hello world. We're doing a callback. Then what will happen is we will get an error. I'm not trying to show you the error, sorry for that. So if we use a callback, what will happen is we have to access the method like this. Inside this we have to do console.log. Okay, and also async is not required anymore. You can still keep async. Okay, let us keep async, not required anymore. Still, how it is not required? Because we're not returning any promise, we're directly running. Okay, now it will go ahead and data it will get and data it will print. Okay, this also is not required. So single one seems still readable enough, but what happens when you want to print it 5 or 6 times? Then things get complicated. This will also print the same thing, do the same action, but the idea is that it is much more complicated unnecessarily. So yeah, so this is another example. I'm going to comment out the rest of the code. Okay, so print value is still running print value, this method, and it will start this. Okay, now this is so unreadable. With the first look you can't even tell how many times it is going to print. Instead, if you look at this, you can easily tell 3 times it is going to print. So let us try that. If there is an error, we have to fix it. Okay, so it has started. So it still does the same job only. It does the same job, but see how unreadable it is. It is not making any sense. Where is what? And in case of big large programs, it is going to be a nightmare. So that is why promises are used. I mean, there are other use cases also, but this is one of the most common use cases. So guys, thank you for watching. Hopefully it was recording, and that's all I had to say. I'll be back with a new video. Until then, goodbye, take care, and like, share and subscribe. Don't forget to do that.